The Viking, 1928. Real wooden longboats. In the late 1920s, the Viking established a risky precedent for true-to-life filmmaking. Producer Varric Frissell, determined to capture the unforgiving North Atlantic, insisted on using real wooden longboats and filming off the icy coasts of Newfoundland. The production's drive for credibility, while groundbreaking, would come at a devastating cost. On March 15, 1929, during additional filming aboard the SS Viking, a real sealing ship used as a prop, an explosion ripped through the vessel. A mishandled cache of explosives, intended for dramatic iceberg shots, ignited unexpectedly. 27 people lost their lives, including Varric himself and cinematographer Alexander Gustavus Penrod. Although principal photography had wrapped, the fatal incident was tied directly to the film's props and the extreme measures taken to achieve an authentic effect. Director Roy William Neill, often credited for his technical prowess, had already completed his duties before the tragedy. However, legends tease that Frissell's relentless push for authentic footage, even after the film's initial completion, led to the fatal voyage. Official reports cite the explosives as the immediate cause, but some dare to guess that the harsh environment, combined with risky storage practices, created a perfect storm. Adding to the technical strain, The Viking was among the first films to attempt two-strip Technicolor on location, requiring fragile equipment ill-suited for the brutal conditions. Surviving production notes highlight constant battles against freezing temperatures and mechanical failures. Despite the disaster, The Viking was praised for its breathtaking scenes and pioneering spirit. Trade journals like Variety hailed its spectacular realism, although the tragedy cast a long shadow. The incident became one of the deadliest accidents in early Hollywood history, sparking calls for better on-set safety protocols, a movement that would take decades to fully materialize. Today, The Viking remains a haunting testament to the perilous edge of early filmmaking, where the line between art and survival is often perilously thin. The Conqueror, 1956. Radioactive sand. In 1956, The Conqueror filmed against Utah's arid backdrop, unknowingly choosing a site downwind from the Nevada test site, where approximately 100 above-ground nuclear tests had been conducted between 1951 and 1958, according to the U.S. Department of Energy. The sand, later trucked to Hollywood for reshoots, carried radioactive fallout. John Wayne, Susan Hayward, Agnes Moorehead, and director Dick Powell all starred in the film. Within 2 decades, each had died from cancer-related illnesses. A 1980 People magazine report claimed that 91 out of 220 cast and crew members eventually developed some form of cancer, a figure that, while staggering, remains based on secondary reporting and has not been independently verified by scientific studies. Producer Howard Hughes, known for his eccentric behavior, was said to be overwhelmed by guilt. Biographer Charles Hyam alleged that Hughes spent $12 million buying every available print of The Conqueror to suppress it, though historians continue to debate the accuracy of this claim. Despite the bleak statistics, experts remain divided. Dr. Robert C. Pendleton of the University of Utah suggested the cancer rates could qualify as an epidemic. Yet skeptics point to heavy smoking habits among the cast and crew as a possible alternative factor. No definitive causal link between the radioactive sand and the cancer cases has ever been scientifically proven. Today, The Conqueror endures less as a cinematic milestone and more as a cautionary symbol of Hollywood's atomic age missteps, a film literally and tragically marked by the sands it chose to showcase. They Died with Their Boots On, 1941, Prop Sword. In 1941, during the filming of They Died with Their Boots On, pursuit of realism led to tragedy. Jack Budlong, an amateur polo player and friend of Errol Flynn, insisted on using a real cavalry saber instead of a safer prop. According to historical accounts, Budlong believed the authentic weapon would heighten the drama of the film's climactic cavalry charge. During a take, Budlong was thrown from his horse. As he fell, the real saber impaled him, causing fatal injuries. The production was stunned. Although no direct quotes from Flynn exist, biographer Thomas McNulty notes that Flynn carried deep guilt over the incident. Errol Flynn, The Life and Career, 2004. Warner Brothers completed the film, premiering it on November 21, 1941. It became a box office success, but behind the scenes, safety practices reportedly shifted. Some film historians suggest that Budlong's death pressured studios like Warner Brothers to rethink the use of real weapons, though no formal policy changes were publicly announced. Legends tease that the saber involved in the accident vanished from studio archives, sparking rumors among collectors and historians. To this day, no confirmed sightings of the weapon have surfaced. Budlong's death stands as an unsettling reminder. In the golden age of Hollywood, the line between authenticity and danger was often fatally thin. The Charge of the Light Brigade, 1936. Tripwires. Warner Brothers' 1936 historical epic, The Charge of the Light Brigade, dazzled audiences with its sweeping cavalry charges, but behind the spectacle lurked a harrowing reality. To achieve the dramatic falls seen on screen, production crews used tripwires, thin cords stretched across the battlefield to deliberately topple galloping horses. Contemporary reports and later investigations suggest that dozens of horses were killed or severely injured during filming, suffering broken limbs and fatal internal trauma. Although rumors have circulated about a stuntman's death during production, no verified evidence supports the claim. Verified accounts focus solely on the devastating toll on animal performers. Director Michael Curtiz was widely criticized for prioritizing realism over safety. Some accounts paraphrase his attitude as believing that realism demands sacrifice, though no direct quote has ever been authenticated. Public outrage was swift, with newspaper editorials condemning the cruelty and demanding industry reforms. The controversy became a catalyst for change. By 1939, the American Humane Association began monitoring Hollywood productions, a move that ultimately led to the No Animals Were Harmed certification seen in films today. Despite the scandal, Michael's career continued to flourish, culminating in classics like Casablanca in 1942. Still, The Charge of the Light Brigade remains a haunting example of how the quest for cinematic realism carried a devastating outcome, one that Hollywood could no longer ignore. The African Queen, 1951, Contaminated Water. Filming The African Queen in 1951 plunged cast and crew into a hidden crisis. Shot on location in Uganda and the Congo, the production depended on local river water for drinking and cooking. Unfiltered and untreated, the water was riddled with parasites and bacteria, leading to widespread illness. Katharine Hepburn endured a severe case of dysentery, later describing in her memoir, Me, Stories of My Life, how she was bedridden and feared for her life. Entire sections of the crew fell violently ill, though no deaths among principal cast or crew were officially recorded. Meanwhile, director John Huston and star Humphrey Bogart famously avoided sickness by sticking to imported whiskey, a tactic detailed in Jeffrey Myers' biography, Bogart: A Life in Hollywood. Huston even joked that the alcohol killed any germs before they could do damage. Legends tease that the grueling conditions, including relentless sickness, lent a raw authenticity to the exhausted performances seen on screen, though no direct evidence confirms this. Some accounts also speculate, without verification, that a few crew members suffered lingering health issues long after filming ended. The contaminated river water, though never intended as part of the production, became an unplanned prop that shaped the film's punishing atmosphere. Huston's insistence on real African locations, rare for the era, achieved the gritty realism he craved, but took a serious human toll. Decades later, retrospectives continue to revisit how one of Hollywood's most celebrated adventures nearly turned into a real-life tragedy. The Wizard of Oz, 1939, aluminum makeup. In 1939, The Wizard of Oz brought dazzling fantasy to the screen, but behind the scenes, a toxic prop nearly turned deadly. Buddy Ebsen, the original Tin Man, suffered a severe reaction to the aluminum powder makeup applied directly to his face and body. According to Ebsen's autobiography, he spent days hospitalized with chemical pneumonia, a condition consistent with inhalation of fine metallic particles, as described in medical literature of the era. Although Ebsen later claimed he relied on oxygen tanks for years, no medical records confirm this, and historians caution that such details stem solely from Ebsen's personal recollections. Production ground to a halt as MGM scrambled to replace Ebsen with Jack Haley. The studio opted for a paste-based aluminum makeup, but even this safer version caused Haley an eye infection, though it was far less severe than Ebsen's ordeal. Some film historians, including Algion Harmitz, suggests that MGM's leadership deliberately avoided publicizing Ebsen's health crisis to protect the film's image, a move consistent with Hollywood's strict control over on-set narratives at the time. However, no direct evidence of a formal cover-up has ever surfaced. Ebsen's career did not collapse, but lingering respiratory issues sidelined him for months, delaying his return to major film work. He later found lasting success in television, notably in the Beverly Hillbillies. Today, his experience stands as a somber reminder of an era when on-set safety standards were virtually non-existent, and the pursuit of movie magic exacted a significant personal toll. The Big Trail, 1931. Wagon train props. In 1930, the Big Trail propelled filmmaking verisimilitude to precarious extremes. Director Raoul Walsh insisted on using genuine, weighty Conestoga-style wagons, each exceeding a ton, to evoke the American wilderness. Shot across 7 inhospitable states, the production endured punishing circumstances. Historian Ronald L. Davis noted that Walsh demanded true frontier conditions, rejecting conventional studio sets for actual rivers and rugged mountain traverses. These methods had swift and severe repercussions. Recorded accounts indicate numerous injuries among both extras and crew, with huge wagons overturning during perilous crossings and craggy descents. John Wayne, an unfamiliar face back then, narrowly avoided grave harm multiple times, as chronicled by biographer Scott Eamon. The loss of livestock underscores just how perilous conditions became. Whispers persist that certain extras were swept away in river scenes and that unreported fatalities took place under the studio's strict media management. Yet no authoritative primary sources corroborate multiple human deaths directly tied to the wagons. Nevertheless, such rumors mirror the tumultuous and treacherous spirit of the rendezvous. For all its scale, the Big Trail underperformed in theaters, partly because its early widescreen format proved incompatible with most venues. Wayne's career stumbled for nearly a decade afterward, hindered by the film's financial shortfall. Today, the imposing Conestoga wagons remain a stark reminder of just how far Hollywood once pursued fidelity, on occasion at a grim price. The Red Badge of Courage, 1951. Battlefield pyrotechnics. On the set of The Red Badge of Courage in 1951, director John Huston's obsession with battlefield verisimilitude pressed safety to the edge. Powerful pyrotechnics meant to mimic the chaos of Civil War combat were detonated alarmingly close to actors and stuntmen. Several crew members reportedly suffered burns and other injuries during production, though no confirmed fatalities were recorded. Film historian Jeffrey Myers, in his biography, John Huston, Courage and Art, 1989, described Huston's approach to action scenes as bordering on the reckless. Some accounts allege that a stuntman later succumbed to complications from his injuries, but no verifiable evidence has surfaced to support this claim. Adding to the tension was Audie Murphy, the film's lead and the most decorated American soldier of World War II. According to biographer Don Graham in No Name on the Bullet, 1989, Murphy's wartime trauma made him particularly sensitive to the perilous atmosphere on set. Despite the physical and psychological toll, MGM executives slashed Huston's original cut following disastrous test screenings in late 1951. While a number of observers suspect that the studio edits helped bury the story of the hazardous shoot, primary sources like Lillian Ross's Picture, 1952, attribute the changes mainly to commercial concerns. The production of The Red Badge of Courage stands as a telling illustration of the Golden Age's often cavalier attitude toward on-set safety, where a lifelike approach sometimes demanded a harrowing sacrifice. The Ten Commandments, 1956, giant set pieces. Cecil B. DeMille's 1956 epic The Ten Commandments is renowned for its breathtaking set pieces, yet the labor that supported the spectacle involved considerable perils. Colossal walls, statues, and cityscapes were constructed, necessitating the daily transport of literal tons of raw materials. Though no documented proof exists of a worker's death caused by a collapsing prop wall, murmurs have persisted about severe mishaps during the hectic build. Some believe such incidents were discreetly resolved to safeguard the film's reputation, but no definitive proof has emerged. Safety protocols of the era were far less stringent than modern standards. Paramount's publicity claimed over 14,000 extras were hired, a figure many scholars suspect was exaggerated. The sheer magnitude of the project made accidents almost unavoidable. Even DeMille himself was not immune to the strain. On November 1st, 1955, the 74-year-old director endured a heart attack while ascending a 107-foot ladder to supervise a shot. Biographer Charles Hyam recounted DeMille's almost messianic resolve, which brought him back to work merely days later. In spite of these threats, The Ten Commandments emerged as one of the era's most lucrative productions, amassing over $65 million at the domestic box office by 1960. Yet behind its towering accomplishments remains the specter of a shoot, where aspiration occasionally overshadowed safety. My Fair Lady, 1964. Elaborate costume. Releasing in 1964, My Fair Lady radiated extravagance, yet Cecil Beaton's ornate costume designs concealed potential hazards. The Ascot sequence, recognized for its austere sophistication, required extras to don towering hats and gowns, tipping the scales at up to 40 pounds under scorching studio lamps. Documented reports confirm multiple extras succumbed to heat exhaustion during shooting, and Audrey Hepburn herself reportedly fainted on several occasions, as noted by biographer Barry Paris. Nevertheless, speculation abounds of a more dire aftermath. Some unverified accounts claim that a background performer later died from complications tied to these punishing conditions, yet no official documentation or trustworthy confirmation exists. Given that studios of the period often controlled information tightly, such secrecy continues to spark questions about what may have been concealed. Though the ponderous wardrobe indisputably led to health crises, there is no credible proof of fatality directly connected to the production. Even so, the episode underscored the intense pressures placed on actors, revealing a stark glimpse into the lesser-seen toll of Hollywood's golden age pageantry. The Greatest Show on Earth, 1952. Circus equipment. Cecil B. DeMille's 1952 extravaganza, The Greatest Show on Earth, was rooted in lifelike spectacle, employing actual circus performers in authentic Ringling Brothers gear. DeMille's fixation on plausibility introduced substantial peril on set. Although no official fatalities were documented during filming, the production's dependence on precarious stunts and minimal safeguards sparked enduring debate. Allegations persist that a trapeze performer perished following a failed prop net, purportedly prompting a covert settlement. Yet no reputable archival evidence substantiates this narrative. Film scholars such as Bernard F. Dick underscore DeMille's penchant for pushing physical endurance, but record no confirmed deaths attributable to the movie's equipment. Charlton Heston and Betty Hutton famously executed many of their own feats without stand-ins, a choice that, as Heston later recounted, entailed scant formal preparation. Minor injuries apparently beset both cast and crew, though most were handled discreetly to keep filming on schedule. Notwithstanding these hazards, and the unverified stories of catastrophe, The Greatest Show on Earth reigned at the 1953 Academy Awards, clinching Best Picture and emerging as Paramount's top-earning release of its time. The film endures as a poignant illustration of an era in Hollywood when spectacle could eclipse prudence, and the boundary between verisimilitude and recklessness hovered precariously. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our new videos each week. Thanks for watching.